Guys, just wanted to welcome you back for another video. And for today, I figured it would be a good time, since I've got the organization videos going on, to take a moment and bring up the topic of our desktop or our workspace. Because I think no matter what size you have, and it doesn't matter how much storage you have, I think the one space that gets absolutely hammered and cluttered the fastest is the desktop and the workspace. And probably not something that gets talked about enough. Like, so much focus, I think, is put on storing stuff in the room. I think we forget about the area on and around our desktop. And I think that's something that is probably important going forward, because I never thought about it quite in that context or as thoroughly as I should have. I think that is a big part of the craft room chaos I ran into at the end of this past craft show season. I don't know that it was so much that we had a lot of craft shows in a fairly short amount of time. I think it's more about I've not really sat down and thought about how to really utilize the space around the desk in terms of being able to keep the most workspace available. And it was so bad at the end of the craft show season. It just was sad to be in here, and that is not a happy feeling. This is a happy space to be in here, right? This is what we're in here for. It's like, it's joyous in here. But it was so chaotic and so cluttered. Like, one of the videos that I did just after the craft show season, I had a request to make a birthday card for a friend at work, and literally everything was just outside. I managed to get the chaos just outside of the camera lens, the viewfinder, or what would have been on camera. You could not see in the video the utter chaos that was all around in the craft room, especially on the desk. So because there was so much going on, I literally could not get in here until we went on break. And then I was just literally yanking stuff out here, there, and everywhere, and ended up having to do a pretty large reboot. But while I was at it, and the point of topic for today's video, I took the opportunity while I was rebooting all the other stuff to think about what would be the best way to set this up. Once I had this whole area needed to be decluttered and reorganized, and all the things that I had stored here got relocated in other areas or moved out, depending on what it was. So when this spot became available, what I needed to do was think about what was I storing that was taking up space. How could I store it to make it more efficient? So that is where I took advantage of this rack became available, or this little metal shelf, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's about the same thing. But I was able to relocate the things that were on it, and I brought it over here. I have more than enough room to be able to get into the pencil sorters on the bottom and on the top. So think in terms of going up if you have a spacing issue, like if you have a small space. I think in that context, you have to think a little more about how are you storing and how are you maximizing the space, right? Because if you have a larger storage area, a lot of the times it's much easier space to work with. You have a little bit more flexibility in terms of reworking storage or how you store things. Whereas if you have a small confined space, then you have to be more careful, and you want to use every square inch that you possibly can. So when I got everything resorted in here, then I needed to clear out as much space here and take the clutter and get it organized over here, where it's a lot over here, but it's functional and I have access to it, because again, out of sight, out of mind. These are things that I keep with me, in front of me, specifically to remember that I need to use them, or there are so many things sprinkled in here that I use them all the time. It's sort of the same point, really. So I needed to keep these things close. I just needed to clear them out where they were taking up so much room in front of me. Because again, by taking up so much room here, when I'm working on a project, it forces me to store stuff down on the other end of the desk, which takes up room for having somewhere to put like finished cards or something like that, because I tend to make a lot of bulk. I do a lot of batch making for cards. I had nowhere to put them as I was finishing them. And then if I was using anything that needed to dry, like pearl drops or something like that, then I really had nowhere to put them because you can't stack them. So hopefully the point I'm trying to make is efficiency. When we think in terms of efficiency, we have to think about the whole process. How much space do I have? How much space do I have to let things dry or to set aside, so that way, the cards aren't in stacks all around the room. I could keep the stacks of cards next to each other. It doesn't matter what crafting that you do, it's basically the same principle. So that's what I am encouraging you to take advantage of. If you are in the process of rebooting your area and your whole craft room or whatever, take a look. Don't neglect how you're storing stuff on your desk, and don't give up any more of the real estate on your desk than you absolutely have to. Because like all of these things here, if I didn't already mention it, these are all temporary. These are all things that I'm using at this moment, but they all have somewhere to go when I'm done using them. But because I'm doing so much video filming of craft projects behind the scenes to get my catalog loaded up to start being able to keep up with content for the new year, I'm in and out of these things right now. But as soon as I don't need them anymore, they can all get put back where they came from, and then all the space is freed back up for the next craft. So just to reiterate, what can you do in structuring your space in and around or on your desk to make sure that you keep the maximum amount of working space open and available while you are doing your crafting? So think in terms of reorganizing and like what you're storing your stuff in. Where are you storing your stuff? And don't neglect the ability to go up if you can do so. Because without this, I would not have been able to make this work for me. And I know for some of you, maybe this seems cluttery, but for me, this is absolutely perfect. Because again, for the way my brain works, I literally have to keep this stuff in front of me. One, because I am in and out of all this stuff all the time, but also for the importance of remembering what I have to use it up. So the things that I'm most likely to forget about, I keep closest to me, if that makes sense. And then for other things that don't go on the desk, but I use them frequently, then that's how I've done the shelves underneath the desk. But again, I don't want to get too far off a tangent. The things that we use, we do want to keep them on hand, but how can we store them where they won't take up room on our desk? So now, hopefully the goal going forward is, in addition to keeping this area efficient, then of course I do need to work on time management, because the more pressured you are to get stuff done, then the crazier it's going to get. And unfortunately, that's not a reorganization issue. that's a I don't know, I guess for me we would call that a brain issue, but that's okay. Again, that's a topic of a different discussion. So, point being, now that I had the moment, took advantage of the reboot, maximized my desk space, maximized the area right here where I can still access what I need. So that again is today's topic of quick conversation, is again not about what I have, as more important as what do you have, how can you maximize it, how can you get your area set up to function for you, because I've said it before, I will always say it, your craft space is personal to you. It needs to function for you, not the other way around. So just remember that. How does your room and how does your desktop specifically work for you? And that is, I think, the best question to start with when you are in the process of rebooting or setting up a craft room, especially if you're new. If you are setting up a craft room for the first time and you're still working through the layout and all of that, then this is the best time in the whole world to ask yourself that question. What can I do to keep the majority of your workspace? Because seriously, that is the number one space we need to keep hold of in our room, bar none. Storage would obviously then be the second consideration, but storage should be built around your desk space, right? So that is my fun thought for today. Hopefully it helps. If you have any other recommendations and suggestions, please, by all means, put them down in the comment. And I really, truly do hope this helps you get set up either for the first time or to get a banging start to 2025. And let's ring that efficiency bell. All right, so take care, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. It is always so much fun. And I will definitely be seeing you in the next video. If you're interested in some more content, here's a couple videos you might want to check out, and I will catch up with you in the next one.